The crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across the marble floors of Salvetti's, one of Chicago's most exclusive restaurants. Lily Adams adjusted her black uniform for the third time that evening, her hands trembling slightly, not from nerves about serving the city's elite, but from the familiar weight of hiding who she really was. At 21, Lily had perfected the art of invisibility, moving through the restaurant like a ghost with a rehearsed smile. She'd been working at Salvetti's for 6 months now, grateful for a job that paid enough to cover her tuition at the local college, where she studied linguistics and international relations. "Table 9 needs their wine refilled," called Heather, the head waitress, barely glancing up from her reservation book. "And try not to spill anything on Mr. Corsetti tonight. He's already complained twice about the temperature in here." Lily nodded, gathering the bottle of Barolo that cost more than she made in a week. Dante Corsetti. Even his name sounded dangerous. She'd been serving his table for 2 months now, and he'd never once looked at her as anything more than a piece of the restaurant's decor. The dining room hummed with the quiet conversations of people who never worried about rent, about medical bills, about whether they'd have enough left over for groceries after paying for textbooks. Lily knew that other world intimately. It was the world she'd escaped from when she'd left her small hometown. "Excuse me, miss." The voice was sharp, commanding, with just a hint of impatience that made Lily's spine straighten automatically. She turned to find Dante Corsetti standing closer than she'd expected, his dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her stomach flutter inappropriately. He was tall. She had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze, with jet black hair that looked like it had been styled by someone who charged more per hour than Lily made in a day. His suit was immaculate, definitely Italian, unmistakably expensive, and on anyone else might have seemed ostentatious. "Your wine, sir," Lily said softly, lifting the bottle slightly. She tried to ignore how the overhead lights caught the strong line of his jaw, the hint of stubble that suggested he'd been too busy for a proper shave. "Not for me." Dante gestured toward the elegant woman sitting at the table behind him. "My mother. She's been trying to get your attention for the past few minutes." Lily's gaze shifted to the woman, and her heart clenched. Mrs. Corsetti was probably in her early 60s with silver hair pulled back in a classic chignon and kind eyes that seemed to hold a universe of stories. She was making subtle hand gestures, her face lit with a hopeful smile. Without thinking, Lily set the wine bottle on the nearest table and approached Mrs. Corsetti. "Good evening," she signed, her hands moving with practiced grace. "How may I help you?" The woman's face transformed with delight, her hands dancing as she responded. "Oh, how wonderful. I was hoping to compliment the chef on the risotto. It reminds me of what my grandmother used to make in Naples years ago. I'll make sure he receives your kind words," Lily signed back, genuinely smiling for the first time all evening. "Would you like me to ask him about the preparation? I believe he uses a special saffron blend from Sicily." Behind her, Lily was vaguely aware that the entire restaurant had grown quieter, but she was focused on Mrs. Corsetti's animated response about her childhood in Naples and how few people took the time to really communicate with her. "You're very kind," the older woman signed. "Most people just smile and nod when they realize I'm deaf. Your signing is beautiful. Where did you learn?" "I grew up with a deaf cousin," Lily replied automatically, then froze as she realized what she'd just revealed. She'd been so careful to keep her past hidden, to build a new identity far from her family connections in Boston. "A deaf cousin?" Dante's voice cut through the moment like a blade. He was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You're full of surprises, aren't you?" Lily felt the familiar panic rising in her chest. She'd been so careful for so long, and now one moment of genuine human connection had cracked her carefully constructed facade. It was just something I picked up as a child, sir. Nothing important." "Nothing important?" Dante stepped closer, his voice dropping to a tone that somehow felt more dangerous than when he'd been demanding. "You speak sign language fluently. What else are you hiding, Lily Adams?" The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Lily could feel the eyes of other diners on them, could sense Heather hovering nervously nearby, probably calculating how much trouble Lily was about to cause. "I should get back to work," Lily said quietly, reaching for the wine bottle. Her hand was trembling visibly now, and she silently cursed her inability to maintain composure. "Wait." Dante caught her wrist, not roughly, but firmly enough to stop her movement. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through her system, and she saw something flicker in his eyes that suggested he'd felt it too. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice gentler now. "That was unnecessarily harsh. My mother doesn't connect with many people. Your kindness means more than you know." Lily's first instinct was to pull away, But something in Dante's expression stopped her, a flicker of vulnerability beneath the power and confidence. "Your mother is lovely," she said softly, meeting his gaze. "She was telling me about her childhood in Naples." 3 days later, Lily found herself unable to stop thinking about the interaction with the Corsettis. She'd expected to be fired for drawing attention to herself, but instead, Heather had handed her an envelope containing a generous tip and a handwritten note. "Thank you for seeing my mother. DC." The Tuesday evening crowd at Salvetti's was thinner than usual, allowing Lily to catch her breath between tables. She was refilling water glasses when she felt it, that unmistakable sensation of being watched, raising goosebumps along her spine. Dante sat alone at his usual table, his dark eyes tracking her movements across the restaurant. Unlike his usual dining companions, serious men in expensive suits who spoke in hushed tones, tonight he was alone, almost as if he was waiting for something, or someone. "Mr. Corsetti would like to speak with you when you have a moment," the restaurant manager whispered as he passed Lily, his tone making it clear this was not a request. "And Lily, be careful. That family isn't known for their forgiving nature." With trembling hands, Lily approached the table, notepad clutched like a shield. "Good evening, Mr. Corsetti. How may I help you?" She was proud of how steady her voice remained despite the hammering of her heart. "Sit down, Lily," Dante said, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. His tone was polite, but left no room for refusal. "I think we need to have a conversation about who you really are." The restaurant seemed to fade away as Lily sank into the chair, her carefully constructed world beginning to crack. "I don't know what you mean," she managed, though the lie felt hollow even to her own ears. "Your accent slips sometimes," Dante said, swirling the red wine in his glass. "Boston, I think. And you flinch when certain names are mentioned. Names like O'Malley or Flanagan. Irish families with connections to my competitors." Fear coursed through Lily's veins, icy and paralyzing. How had he noticed these things? She'd been so careful, changing her hair color, her name, even the way she walked and dressed. "I'm just a waitress trying to get through college. A waitress who speaks fluent Italian sign language, a rare dialect even among interpreters." Dante leaned forward, his voice dropping to an intimate murmur. "A waitress who tenses every time my associate Bianchi walks through the door, as if you recognize him, as if you're afraid of him." "You've been watching me," Lily accused, finding an unexpected courage in her fear. The realization should have terrified her more, but instead she felt a strange relief, the exhaustion of maintaining her facade giving way to something almost like surrender. "I watch everyone," Dante replied with a slight shrug that did nothing to diminish his intensity. "It's how I've stayed alive this long. But you, Lily Adams, or should I call you by your real name? You're different." A chill ran through her body as she realized the depth of her miscalculation. She had chosen this restaurant because it was far from Irish territory, never imagining she'd end up serving one of the most powerful figures in the Italian syndicate. "My mother thinks you're an angel," Dante continued, surprising Lily with the gentleness in his tone. "She hasn't stopped talking about you since that night. She says you have kind eyes despite the fear you carry." Lily's fingers twisted nervously in her lap, the weight of her secrets suddenly unbearable. "Your mother is perceptive, but she doesn't know who I am, who my family is. If she did, she wouldn't be so welcoming. She knows more than you think," Dante said cryptically, his dark eyes studying her with uncomfortable intensity. "The question is, what are you doing here, serving tables at a restaurant frequented by your family's sworn enemies?" Outside the restaurant window, rain began to fall, streaking the glass and blurring the city lights into watercolor smudges. It matched Lily's blurring reality, the clear lines between safety and danger washing away with every word exchanged. "I'm not what you think," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the restaurant's ambient noise. "I left that life. I'm not part of my family's business. I never was." Dante's laugh was surprisingly gentle, almost sad. "No one ever truly leaves, Lily, especially not O'Malley, especially not the daughter of Patrick O'Malley, whose hatred for my family spans generations." Lily felt the blood drain from her face. He knew. Of course he knew. "My father disowned me 2 years ago when I refused to marry into the Sullivan family to cement their alliance. As far as he's concerned, I no longer exist." Recognition flickered in Dante's eyes, followed by something that might have been respect. "So you chose exile over being a pawn in their game. Brave. Foolish, but brave." "Not brave enough," Lily countered, thinking of the night she'd fled, taking nothing but a backpack, and the guilt of abandoning her younger siblings. I should have done more to protect my brothers and sisters before I left. A muscle twitched in Dante's jaw, the only indication that her words had affected him. Your youngest brother, Tommy. He's safe. My people have been keeping an eye on him at college in Vermont. Lily's head snapped up, shock and confusion warring on her face. You've been watching Tommy? Why would you? Her question died as understanding dawned, cold and terrifying. You've been using him to find me. Initially, yes, Dante admitted without apology. But something changed 3 months ago. Your father's right-hand man, Sean Flanagan, made a move against the boy. We intervened. The restaurant suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. Lily struggled to process what Dante was telling her, the implications sending her mind spinning in dangerous directions. Sean wouldn't. He's been loyal to my father for decades. Loyalty changes when power shifts, Dante said, his eyes never leaving her face. There's been talk that your father is losing his grip, that Flanagan has been making deals with the Russians behind his back. Outside, a black SUV pulled up to the curb, its windows tinted against prying eyes. Dante glanced at it briefly before returning his attention to Lily. Your family is imploding, and the fallout is going to be catastrophic for everyone involved. Lily felt sick, her carefully constructed new life crumbling around her. Why are you telling me this? What do you want from me, Dante? Because my mother likes you, he said with a wry smile that didn't reach his eyes. And because I need someone who knows Flanagan's habits, his hiding places, his weaknesses. Someone who grew up watching him operate. The implication hung between them, absurd and impossible. You want me to help you take down my father's organization? I left that world. I don't know anything about their current operations. Dante reached across the table, his fingers brushing against hers in a touch that felt both threatening and oddly reassuring. What I want is to prevent a war that will leave dozens of bodies in its wake, including your siblings. Lily pulled her hand away, fighting the unexpected electricity of his touch. You expect me to believe you care about preventing bloodshed? Your family's reputation suggests otherwise. Reputations are useful tools, Dante said, his voice hardening, but they rarely tell the full story. My father built his empire on violence. I've spent 5 years dismantling the most brutal aspects of his legacy. You want me to believe you're the good guy in all this? Lily asked, disbelief evident in her voice. The restaurant had emptied considerably, leaving them in a bubble of relative privacy as rain continued to streak the windows. Dante's expression hardened. There are no good guys in this story, Lily. Just people trying to survive and maybe protect the ones they care about along the way. He checked his watch, an elegant timepiece that probably cost more than her tuition. We don't have much time. Flanagan's men have been watching this restaurant for the past 20 minutes. That black sedan across the street. He spoke without turning to look, his posture relaxed despite the danger he described. Lily's blood turned to ice as she discreetly glanced toward the window. The sedan was positioned perfectly to monitor the restaurant's entrance, its occupants hidden behind tinted windows. How did they find me? A waitress approached their table with nervous energy, placing a dessert menu between them as cover. There's a man at the bar asking questions about you, she whispered to Lily. Showed your picture to the bartender. Irish accent, scar above his right eye. Declan, Lily breathed, recognizing the description of her father's most ruthless enforcer. The man who'd broken her cousin's legs for skimming from collection money, who handled problems that needed to disappear permanently. Dante's expression remained unchanged, but Lily noticed the subtle shift in his posture, coiled tension ready to spring. There's a service corridor through the kitchen that connects to the building next door. The staff use it for smoke breaks. Lily's academic life flashed before her eyes. The linguistic scholarship she'd worked so hard for. The apartment she shared with a roommate who knew nothing of her past. The normal existence she'd carved out through sheer determination and anonymity. The same way I did, following the thread of your unusual talents. Dante's voice was matter of fact. How many people can speak that specific dialect of Italian sign language? Your kindness to my mother painted a target on your back. He slid a cell phone across the table, sleek and obviously untraceable. Take this. My driver will meet you at the back entrance in 5 minutes. He'll take you somewhere safe while we figure this out. Panic flared in Lily's chest. My roommate, my classes, I can't just disappear. People will notice. She thought of her carefully constructed life, her upcoming linguistics exam, the half-finished paper on her laptop. Your roommate will be told you had a family emergency. Your professors will receive emails asking for extensions. Dante's efficiency was both reassuring and terrifying. But if you walk out the front door, Flanagan's men will make you disappear permanently. Lily stared at the phone. The the reality of her situation crashing down around her. This wasn't a negotiation. It was her only chance at survival. Why would you risk helping me? I'm nothing to you. Worse, I'm an O'Malley. Because I've spent 2 months watching you study until dawn, donate half your tips to a homeless shelter, and treat my mother with more dignity than most of my associates. His voice softened almost imperceptibly. You deserve better than being collateral damage in Flanagan's power grab. Before she could respond, Dante's phone vibrated with a text. His expression darkened as he read it. They're making a move. Go now. Through the kitchen, down the hall. Last door on the left. Carlo is waiting with a black SUV. Lily rose on shaky legs, clutching the phone he'd given her like a lifeline. What about you? Won't they recognize you leaving? Let me worry about myself, Dante said, his smile predatory in a way that reminded Lily exactly who he was beneath the expensive suit and cultured manners. I've dealt with worse than Sean Flanagan's thugs. 3 weeks later, Lily stood at the window of a lakeside safe house, watching dawn break over the water. The cabin belonged to Dante's family, a peaceful retreat where generations of Corsettis had escaped the pressures of city life and family business. Mrs. Corsetti sat at the rustic dining table, her elegant hands signing rapidly as she told Lily stories of Dante as a child, stubborn, fiercely protective, always with a strong sense of justice that his father had tried to beat out of him. He was different from the beginning, Mrs. Corsetti signed, her expressions as eloquent as her hands. My husband wanted him to be cruel, but Dante found ways to show mercy without appearing weak. It's a difficult balance in our world. The burner phone Dante had given her vibrated against the windowsill, displaying a simple message. It's time. Be ready in 10. Lily's stomach clenched with a mixture of fear and anticipation as she showed the message to Mrs. Corsetti. He will protect you, the older woman signed, her eyes gentle but knowing. My son sees in you what I see, a kindred spirit trying to escape a legacy you never chose. The sound of tires on gravel announced Dante's arrival. He entered alone, his normally immaculate appearance disheveled, a cut above his eyebrow, bruised knuckles, but his eyes were alive with grim satisfaction. We found the evidence, he said without preamble, setting a laptop on the table. Financial records, communications with the Russians, orders for hits on your brothers. Flanagan has been systematically dismantling your father's organization from within. Lily stared at the screen, nausea rising as she scrolled through communications that detailed the calculated betrayal. My father trusted him completely. They grew up together, shared everything. How could Sean do this? A particular message caught Lily's eye, a conversation between Flanagan and an unknown contact about the girl who got away. Her throat tightened as she realized they were discussing her, planning to use her as leverage against her father if he discovered their betrayal. He sent men to my university, she whispered, pointing to timestamps from 2 months ago. They were in my literature class, my favorite coffee shop. They were everywhere, watching, waiting for the right moment. Dante's hand rested on her shoulder, steady and warm against her trembling body. But they didn't get to you, and now we're 10 steps ahead of whatever they planned. Mrs. Corsetti approached with 3 cups of tea, her movements graceful despite her age. She signed to Lily. My son rarely brings anyone to this place. It has been our sanctuary since he was a boy, the only place his father never tainted with violence. Power corrupts even the strongest loyalties, Dante said, his voice devoid of judgment. But we have a more immediate problem. Flanagan knows we have this evidence, and he's called for a sit-down with your father tonight. Lily looked up sharply, understanding the implications immediately. It's a trap. He's going to kill my father and blame it on you, starting a war that will destroy both families. Exactly. Dante's expression was grim as he pulled out a gun, checking it methodically before tucking it into his shoulder holster. Which is why we're going to be there to stop it. Lily's protest died on her lips as Mrs. Corsetti's hands moved in a flurry of signs. You can't ask her to face them. They'll kill her on sight for betraying the family. I'm not asking, Lily said, finding strength in a decision that felt inevitable. These are my brothers. My sister's at risk. I ran away once. I won't do it again. The warehouse on the docks was neutral territory, a place where disputes between families had been settled for generations. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs as she sat in the passenger seat of Dante's car, watching figures move through the shadows. Your father arrived 10 minutes ago with minimal security, Dante said, checking his phone for updates from his men positioned around the perimeter. Flanagan is inside with 6 men, more than necessary for a peaceful meeting. Lily nodded, her mouth dry with fear as she checked her own weapon, a small pistol that felt foreign in her hand despite the lessons of her youth. I need to speak to my father alone first. If I can convince him of Flanagan's betrayal, we might avoid bloodshed. The plan was simple but dangerous. Dante's men would secure the exits while Lily confronted her father with the evidence. Dante would remain nearby, ready to intervene if Flanagan's men made a move, but staying hidden to prevent escalation based on his presence alone. Be careful, Dante said as they prepared to separate, his hand lingering on her arm. Your father may not believe you, even with proof. Years of loyalty are hard to override, even with evidence. I know. Lily's voice was steady despite her fear, but he deserves the chance to know the truth, to make his own choice, just like I did when I left. The warehouse interior was dimly lit, smelling of fish and salt water. Lily slipped through a side entrance, the flash drive with Flanagan's treachery clutched in her palm like a talisman, as she moved silently toward the office where the meeting would take place. Memories flooded back as Lily navigated the familiar territory. Summers spent learning the family business, her father's large hand guiding hers as he taught her to count shipments, identify quality goods, distinguish friend from foe by the subtlest signs. The weight of her gun pressed against her lower back, a cold reminder of the path she'd rejected, and the violence she now willingly embraced to protect what remained of her family. The irony wasn't lost on her, how far she'd run only to circle back. Hidden in alcoves throughout the warehouse, she spotted Dante's men, identifiable by their stillness, their watchful eyes, their strategic positioning. Among them was Carlo, Dante's most trusted lieutenant, who had spent the past weeks teaching Lily defensive tactics, while sharing stories of how Dante had gradually transformed their operations. Through the shadows, Lily caught glimpses of her younger brother, Sean Jr., positioned as security near the main entrance, taller than she remembered, his face harder, eyes constantly scanning for threats. Her heart ached at the man he'd become in her absence, wondering if he would recognize her or shoot her on sight as a traitor. Through a crack in the door, she could see her father, older than she remembered, the lines in his face deeper, his once robust frame slightly stooped. Facing him was Sean Flanagan, his expression solicitous but eyes cold as he poured drinks for them both. Patrick, we've known each other too long for secrets, Flanagan was saying, his voice carrying the lilt of their shared Irish homeland. The Italians are moving against us. This meeting tonight is just a distraction while they target your children. Lily's breath caught as she watched Flanagan slide a glass toward her father, the same glass she'd just seen him add something to when her father had looked away. With no time to hesitate, she pushed the door open. Don't drink that, Da. He's trying to kill you. The room froze in tableau. Her father's shock, Flanagan's rage, the guards reaching for weapons. Lily? Her father's voice cracked with disbelief. My God, girl, where have you... She's with the Corsettis now, Patrick. Flanagan cut in, his hand moving toward the gun at his waist. Sleeping with the enemy. Can't you see this is their trap? Lily stepped forward, sliding the flash drive across the table. Check the files, Da. Bank transfers to the Russians. Orders for hits on Tommy and Sean Jr. In communications planning your murder tonight. He's been betraying you for years. What happened next unfolded in a blur of motion and sound. Flanagan lunging for the flash drive, guards drawing weapons, her father's roar of rage as he knocked away the poisoned drink. Then Dante was there, appearing from shadows she hadn't known concealed him, his gun trained steadily on Flanagan. It's over, Sean, her father said, his voice deadly calm as he examined the evidence on a laptop one of his men provided. His eyes, when he raised them, contained a fury Lily remembered from childhood. Cold, calculating, and promising retribution. 6 months later, Lily stood in the garden of the Corsetti family estate, watching Dante's mother tend to her prized roses. The aftermath of that night had redrawn the boundaries of Chicago's underworld, her father retiring to Ireland, passing leadership to her oldest brother, with strict instructions to maintain the new peace with the Corsettis. Flanagan had disappeared that night, officially. Unofficially, Lily knew that some betrayals could only be answered one way in their world. She had made her peace with that knowledge, understanding that sometimes survival required difficult choices. You're pensive today, Dante said, appearing beside her with 2 cups of coffee, his free hand finding hers with easy familiarity. The past months had transformed their unlikely alliance into something neither had expected, respect becoming trust, trust becoming affection, affection deepening into love. Just thinking about how different things might have been, Lily replied, watching Mrs. Corsetti, who was now teaching sign language to a group of Dante's associates, part of her campaign to make the organization more inclusive and community-focused. Dante followed her gaze, his expression softening. Different, but not better. Sometimes the most unexpected paths lead us exactly where we need to be. He pressed a kiss to her temple, his lips lingering against her skin. No regrets? No regrets, Lily confirmed, turning to face the man who had helped her find the courage to reclaim her voice and her family, even as she built something new from the ashes of their shared violent histories. Together, they were writing a new chapter, one where old enemies became allies, where sign language could bridge worlds, and where a shy waitress and a reluctant mafia boss could find redemption in each other's arms. Thank you all for following this story. If you enjoyed it, please write in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, as your support is essential for me to continue creating content like this.